I'm Shane Thomas, and this is Analysing Doctor Who.
I'm joined by Jonathan Wilkinson and Jen Allen, and we are here to analyse the Robot Revolution. And if you have any thoughts on our thoughts or anything else Doctor Who based, you can email us at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com. So if we just start with the episode rating out of 10 for this. Jen, would you give this out of 10?
I gave it a 6.
Okay, Jonathan, would you give this?
5.
Okay, I personally give it a 7. So, Jonathan, we come to you first, and what was your favourite part of this episode?
I mean, it's the probably spoilers for the MVP, but the introduction of the new companion, Belinda, everything to do with her. Really enjoyed that kind of stuff. Though, if one scene stood out, actually, it was the bit where they were talking about having code words in every 9th word. That's kind of clever.
That is also my favourite part, that scene. Yeah, I mean, what I personally really liked about that is it's actually the bit where the companion and the Doctor start to get on the same level. I think when you have a new companion every time, you're thinking, okay, so why does the Doctor want to go traveling with this person? What makes them stand out? And usually the companion, intention otherwise, they get tested, like, in a way, and the Doctor kind of spots them. So, like, it's almost like, I think if you're like scouting a prospect in like college football or something, the player's got to do something to make them stand out, and you think, oh yeah, I like them on my team. The fact the Doctor does, out of necessity, have to kind of give her this 9th word test and just hope she realizes what he's talking about. And she gets it. And she gets it quite quickly. Is immediately the spark of the Doctor thinking, I would like to go traveling with this person. The camera work was quite good from Peter Hoare in this as well. I watched the scene back, and the camera gets very tight on them both. It cross-cuts between them. And right then, it's just they're the only two people in the scenes. Like they're the only two people in a room. The episode, I think, just shifted up a little bit in terms of its pacing at that moment. It transitioned well. Like, it feels like such thing doesn't exist. But, you know, if you were giving like lessons in how to write a Doctor Who episode, that was the moment after like the exposition of, okay, now we have to transition into like a big moment here where it's important for characters and obviously important for the plot, because we get a big shootout. So its timing, where they put it in the episode, I think worked really nicely. And it was also nice to see the Doctor getting out of a tough situation, like with their smarts.
We're not using a sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, no sonic, and obviously no violence, but that's kind of generally what you think a Doctor does. That's the Sherlock Holmes influence, which was there with the show way back when, of being quick-witted enough and nimble enough mentally to figure your way out of a really, really difficult situation. And that's not something I think I've seen enough of with these last two Doctors, the current one and the previous one. You thinking they're backed into a corner and then them finding a way out of it. Maybe it's there and I'm just not remembering it, but I just think of Jodie and Ncuti's first series, and I can't remember many occasions where they escaped an inescapable situation. And they did here, and I always think that's something Doctor Who does really well. If we finish this section with you, John, what's your favourite part of the episode?
The thing I liked most was the exact opposite, which was the infirmary scene, because it actually slowed down the pace of the episode just for a little bit. And I like that Belinda, as a nurse, immediately she got there and she just went right in. She's like, what fluids do we have? What's going on? And she immediately started helping people, and she was just in there. And I think that more than anything impressed the Doctor about her as a person and her being a potential companion. Just the way his face, when he looked at her, when she was just right in there helping people, was priceless. And props to Ncuti for that reaction, and props to Varada going right in there and playing Belinda that way. And just, she was no nonsense, and she's hardwired. She's like, I'm a nurse, I have to do this. And she just went right in there. And I love that she did that. And it's just a great characterization of her, that she wants to help people. And she's very no-nonsense. And compared to the rest of the episode, which is bombastic, and there's robots, and there's rockets, and there's everyone's doing this, and there's explosions. And it was just a nice little quieter moment in the episode where we got some really cool characterization, specifically of Belinda, which I'm sure will radiate through the rest of the whole season. So I felt that was, in my opinion, the best part of the episode.
So yeah, I totally actually agree with you on that point. That's a very important scene as well. I only noticed that in the second watch. I didn't notice that in the first watch, but you're right, it slows down. Using her nursing training, relying on fluids, the Doctor noticing her immediately going to help without having to be asked to do so or convinced to do so or anything. It's like that's what she would do in that situation. Naturally, almost working like in service of others is definitely an important aspect Think of the people the Doctor wants to go travelling with. Okay, so if we move, Jen, from what our favourite part was, Jennifer, ask you your least favourite part of the episode.
The characterization of Alan in general. Basically making him into a gamer geek / incel / self-absorbent jerk, kind of making him a stereotype. I was not fond of that because not all gamers are like that, not all men are like that, not all British men are like that. I just felt that was really, really stabbing into a specific stereotype that I wasn't very fond of. Being a gamer myself, I was put off by it.
Well, I'll ask because I'm not. Jonathan, are you still?
Yeah, I do a lot of gaming. Yeah. It's interesting because one of the biggest things that's been on television recently, well, Netflix recently, is Adolescence, which is all obviously completely opposite end of the scale to Doctor Who, which is all about the incel and the effect that people like Andrew Tate are having on people. And part of it, it's like, okay, Russell, you're being as subtle as a brick again. And also part of me thinks that he was setting up a twist because he was like, he's called Al, and it's Al, not AI. Everyone's going to think it's a parable tale about AI, and now I need to swap it into something. Oh, this guy can be called Al. I didn't really think it was an attack on gamer. It's just that culture that's going on at the moment in this world. Yeah, it didn't work for me. It wasn't part. And the entire end scene where they kind of revealed it and basically just talked it out, and then it got a bit the whole touching the fins together. So it just reminded me of there's a Van Damme film that my mate, because my mate loves Van Damme, made me watch one.
Time
Cop. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, I could be watching Time Cop. I didn't find it insulting. I just found it a bit lazy and weak.
Well, they also added that he was very controlling. I wasn't fond of that either, but I guess it's because of my gender. I don't know. It's just, it rubbed me the wrong way.
I was going to ask you further about the gender, because you're not speaking for a woman here, you're just speaking for yourself. But if part of the issue you had with this also that the character's a gamer, like if he just wasn't a gamer and everything else was the same, would you feel the same?
Yes, actually, because it wasn't just the gaming, it was his attitude in general to her, wanting to be very controlling. I mean, it's only shown in like a very brief, like 3-second spot, but they specifically emphasize that he's a gamer by the fact that they caught him while he was gaming. When they brought him to the planet, he said, so this is like a game. They kept saying over and over again, he's a gamer. And I'm like, okay, we get it.
They definitely more than once. I mean, it's ironic that me and Jonathan are like, we seem mostly fine generally with the depiction. It wasn't the lack of subtlety. Yes, 100%. First, it's Russell T Davies. Also, in his defense, this is kind of Doctor Who rather than something like Black Mirror. So the messaging is usually kind of like sledgehammer. Particularly like in Russell's there's not really a mystery what he's addressing often when he takes on whatever socio-political issue. It's very timely. Jonathan's already mentioned adolescence. It's a very timely topic. So, I mean, and as far as the depiction, like I think Alan's very first line is, I know girls aren't good at maths. So it's like immediately you're like, okay, we know who this guy is. I think that's partly used to also give us some understanding in Belinda and who she is, because we get a little bit of her own backstory. I think, was it 17 years, is it? 17 years between the Belinda in that first scene and the Belinda who ends up meeting the Doctor, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And she hadn't seen Alan in 16 years, so yeah.
So it's not subtle, but I'm fine with that. And partly another reason why I'm mostly, I didn't mind the way it was depicted was partly, I think, who the audience is. So yes, the audience is people our age, but there are going to be a lot of people. I haven't watched Adolescence yet, so I've been trying to avoid knowing too much about it. But like the kid in that, however old that kid's meant to be in that show, there'll probably be boys that age who are watching, or who will be watching when they catch up with the episode. So I think it's partly for them. I think Russell at times, he tried to do this with Dot and Bubble as well, of the idea, and this happens less and less, but the idea of parents or guardians watching this with their kids. And then it can potentially be a way to then broach that topic with your kids. I think it's partly as well, they were obviously very broad, those stereotypes, but I think it's partly because Alan's not on screen for very long. So we don't have time to really delve into his backstory and why did he become like this and who raised him and what lesson did he learn. It's more, okay, that, and then we see him in the generator by the end. I definitely don't think it's like the most effective Doctor Who villain. I mean, usually I think of a lot of Russell's opening episodes, even like the really stronger ones, the villains generally aren't like the most intimidating or even memorable. I think he fit into one of these. Like, I definitely don't think we'll be seeing him again anytime soon.
He got swept up, didn't he, by
Well, yeah, polish.
It might be merch. It might be AI generated merch. We might see that as a toy in a year's time.
I think they did need him to have a hobby that made sense, that he was excited about, to be in space and robots and stuff, and gaming is a go-to for that. Because it's like, let's say if it's a football jock, which...
When Jen's obviously given us her reasoning, I was thinking, there's two ways you could probably go, and it is probably gamer or sports.
And I don't think sports, in the context of what was happening on that planet, makes much sense. Well, there are plenty of people into both, obviously. I think it was more like, he was excited because he was viewing it as like a game kind of thing. It was more just they wanted a toxic man, and toxic men can mean every hobby and thing, and it was just like, okay. But yeah, I didn't view it as an attack on gamers, just on that type of dude.
I mean, I'm just thinking of, because I mentioned Black Mirror, is like it's a lesser version of the Jesse Plemons character from USS Callisto episode of Black Mirror. You know, the Star Trek parody. There's aspects of that I think are quite. Maybe that's partly where Russell got the idea from. So, I mean, for the record, like, it's perfectly fine if we don't all see this the same way. Like, I didn't think it was like massively memorable, but I understand where Russell would take that topic on. And I say right now, this has been written like 18 months ago at least. But I understand why that would have felt, and it is something that actually did strike a chord. Just looking at some of the online reaction, strike a chord with quite a few of the fan bases. Because broadly, I mean, obviously you never get 100% agreement on anything with Doctor Who, but broadly speaking, this has been received quite well, this episode. And I made sure I saved this. The TV critic Darren Mooney actually said yesterday, he said it's incredible in a year where Disney's bent over backwards to pander bigots, transphobes, and the alt-right, stripping trans characters from their properties and deleting environmental subplots that RTD got Disney money to save Planet the Incels. He's an American critic, and I do think sometimes, I know Jen isn't one of these people, but some Americans are like, Doctor Who's a Disney show now, and it's like, well, like, to a degree. I still think in terms of the making of the show, it's actually at least 60-40 BBC, if not 65-35.
Oh yeah, I know it's still a BBC production, but it's got Disney money.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the better way to look at it, rather than, like, this is not Disney's cultural output. This is the BBC's cultural output, more specifically Russell T Davies's cultural output. But Gia John, if we move to what you like the least from this?
It's the emotional, the time not spent on establishing the Doctor's relationship with Sasha 55, and then him all of a sudden being the most devastating thing that ever happened to him, that she was killed.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so sorry for a character I saw for 3 minutes. Oh.
Yeah, like if you compare it to like the Christmas episode where we had all that time on screen with, I can't remember the name of the character in the hotel.
Anita.
Anita. If something similar had happened to her, there would have been a massive emotional reaction to that. But in this, it was like, the Doctor's been on this planet for 6 months, just take his word for it. And he's really good friends with her. Oh, she's dead because of his quite poorly thought out plan of starting a rebellion in the middle of an army full of robots. He didn't earn it. I don't know, I just felt like the episode, and maybe also with the character Al, it just didn't let the episode breathe to build those emotional hits up in the way that maybe it would have done in the past. Maybe spent a less time on Sasha and more time on Al, or vice versa.
I see what you're saying. I will say slightly in Russell's defense that there's a lack of just time. Your idea is not a bad idea at all, and it does feel like something that maybe was in a earlier draft of the script and then had to get cut. But I'm like, I don't know what I would have lost instead. You're right that we don't get... I mean, she just seems like some character at first, and it's only... I mean, first of all, when Sasha talks about the Doctor and how I trust him with my life and will save you and take you home and then show me the stars, Doctor, it's like, has a character's death ever been telegraphed more on the show?
She might as well be wearing red.
Yeah, immediately when she said, then be sure to take me with that, she's going to die. That was the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, you definitely thought, oh, God, well, you ain't making it to the end then. She didn't even make it out of the room, let alone the end. That, I mean, like, we can't feel what the Doctor feels, but I can understand that there's 6... I mean, it does have the feel of a potential audiobook at some point of what happened in those 6 months. But that felt more of a... Not that it was like a genius idea, but it was like, oh, okay, so there is something there, but we haven't had a chance to see it. Because the key part of the episode wasn't really Sasha, I didn't mind too much, because there was other more compelling stuff we had to get to. I mean, I did though think that Russell does love a companion that doesn't become a companion. Because I think if you can add like Sasha to the list of Astrid, the Kylie Minogue character in Voyage of the Damned, and the Lady Christina character from Planet of the Dead, that Michelle Ryan played, and the Linda with a Y character from Christopher Eccleston's last episode.
Yeah, and then there was Donna originally. She was she was meant to be originally in just one episode, and then they brought her back.
Which also leads into another companion that wasn't, a character called Penny, who's in when Catherine Tate comes back full-time as Partners in Crime. Penny is the journalist who gets kind of kidnapped. When they have the Doctor and Don have that great wordless communication scene, they're both looking in the room where Penny's tied up, because Penny, this is in The Writer's Tale, Penny was originally meant to be the companion, and then Catherine Tate became available, and then Russell was like, all right, fuck this character, I got Catherine Tate back.
I'm also thinking, there was that kid that was in the first season with Eccleston that they kind of took him to the future. He was in 2 episodes. That Rose
I forgot about him.
Yeah, him. I cannot remember his name. But
Speaking of himself.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, he was only in 2 episodes, and then he got the thing on his forehead, and they dropped him off like, good luck hiding that, bye!
That is a real theme for Russell of, this is going to be a companion. Oh, no, they ain't. That rug gets pulled out, which in the Doctor's life actually does make sense. If you think that all the chaos the Doctor gets into over so many years, there would be a lot of people that just fell by the wayside. I'm sure you've had this at Leeds, the football club and the rugby league club, the Rhinos, of a player you think is going to make it, and then for whatever reason they get injured, they just don't make it as a player. Just like, but I thought they were going to be our next superstar, and it turned out they weren't.
Or Spurs buy them and then they don't do much afterwards.
Yeah, Spurs buy them, they play them in every position apart from their actual position. But so I do see what you're saying about Sasha. But ultimately, we know it wasn't going to be her. We know. Mm-hmm. The Doctor's another one, but we know. So that's why a moment of the episode I didn't say I loved, but I didn't necessarily dislike. My least favorite part of the episode, and we kind of touched on this, that, I guess, dramatic, or I say dramatic, the action conclusion when the Al generator is dispatched, and it comes with the Doctor has the diploma. Okay, fine, we know that. Gives it to, does that little contraption have a name?
The little cleaning bot? I don't
polish,
think they gave
polish,
it.
Yeah.
Just polish. Yeah. It reminded me of, there's a little bot like that in WALL-E. It reminded me of that little guy who was always constantly cleaning the floor. I think it was kind of an Espy of that little robot.
Probably right. It's probably an inspiration. I mean, I love that little character. That has merch written all over it. But yes, he gives it to the bot, and it is like that does feel like Chekhov's bot. At some point, you realise that was going to have a role to play. It goes all the way up to Belinda. Belinda then crouches down, takes it out, and no one does anything. And it's like, did the robots not see? Did Al not see? You can't see they're exchanging something, even if it just looks like a scroll of paper. Wouldn't you be suspicious? And then Belinda goes to touch her scroll to his scroll, and he seems to be fine with it. That's a moment of in any dramatic conclusion to an episode, that should be a moment of big tension. Because it's a moment where you think our heroes might die. We know they won't, but they're in real peril. And it was like a balloon that got just slowly deflated, because I'm like, well, no, stop. Why is no one trying to stop them? They're not even trying to react. They don't even react at all. And so that moment of real tension that you should have just wasn't there at all. It didn't ruin the whole episode, but that felt like we were struggling to get it all in. Maybe we were running against time. It felt rushed. It felt really rushed. So characters just acted in ways that didn't really make a lot of sense. And when they don't do that, it takes you out the scene.
Yeah, it almost called for a callback to the 9th word thing, and then it should have been linking together maybe that they'd already communicated and she had the scroll on her at some point, but I don't know.
That would have made more sense. Just, if you're going to outwit them. Don't just do something really slowly and no one does anything. That really just doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of just narrative momentum and drama. It just doesn't, there was none. It should have been. That's meant to be a dramatic moment. And the other thing about that scene, we've already mentioned Time Cop. 2 things can't occupy the same space. That is one of those tropes you get in time travel stories. There are all certain tropes, don't meet your future self, whatever you do in the past affects the future. And not every time travel show follows certain rules. Like with vampire stories, they don't always follow the same vampire traits. And with the 2 things occupying the same space, we're just like, okay, well, we're just not bothering with that in Doctor Who. Because I'm fairly confident that 2 things have occupied the same space in this show before multiple occasions.
Not like the Doctor.
That was one of my first thoughts.
I was like, they've had multiple Doctors in the same scene before, multiple times, and they seem to be fine. Not really done much in the past in the Who, but okay.
Yeah, I don't even mind that as a rule, but that's not been a rule before. And you're kind of boxing yourself into a corner writing-wise if that's now a rule. I mean, when they said it in the episode, it's done in a way you're like, that's gonna become relevant at some point later in the episode. But I was like, but no, that's not a rule. I immediately was just disregarded it almost in my head. Cause I'm like, that's bullshit. Two things can occupy the same. In this show, in Time Cop, fair enough. They laid those rules out, and to be fair, they followed them through. But I was like, no, not in this show, because this show's never done that. So that, again, contributed to the whole, this scene doesn't actually, it could work, but it didn't work in how it was executed. It didn't ruin the episode. But these are things where I'm like, this was a 7. I stand by my 7. But this is the lower end of a 7 rather than the higher end of a 7. Like, this is close to being a 6 and an 8. And it's because of little moments like that. We've already spoken about her a little bit, but if we move to talking about Belinda now, Jonathan, you said a bit about her already. Is anything in terms of how they how they characterized her, the performance and stuff in this episode?
So yeah, like I said earlier, I actually really liked how they introduce her as a character, as this nurse, overworked obviously, and then building on that. I think Jen's already made some really good points about the infirmary scene where she's on the planet, where she just gets proper stuck in, and she takes, as most companions do, starts taking things in a stride. I don't think, like, even at the end when she does the whole TARDIS bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, even though that has been played out a million times before, it still felt quite fresh with her character, to be fair, and she approached it in a bit of a different way. And I think she's definitely steals. I mean, this episode's always going to be about her because it's a new companion, and the first episode is always, with new companions, is always about the companion. And I felt at home with her. I think, yeah, I'm going to enjoy watching her go along for the ride. Introduced a little bit of mystery with the whole, when they touch the diplomas, that whatever happened there happened. Because obviously this actor has already been in the show, playing a different character. So I think I'm going to enjoy watching her. Lots of different energy to... The only thing is, it's another companion with another mystery in it. And we've had a lot of those recently. It might be nice just to have a companion that comes along for the ride, which I don't think we've probably had since Bill.
I don't know, to be fair, Jodie's. Like, that era did exist.
Yeah, I forgot. How could I forget about Bradley? Graham, MVP.
Yeah, and like Dan is played by John Bishop. We didn't really have mystery around him, but no, you're right. It has been something we've seen a lot more. So yeah, Jen, if I bring you in on Belinda.
Well, first off, it's nice to see yet another companion of color on the show. This time, this is the very first season where both main cast members will be people of color, which is really cool. Belinda herself, immediately when I saw her in the nurse's scrubs and everything else, I was like, oh, please don't make her Martha. Don't make her Martha. And then as it went along, she kind of became an amalgamation of Martha, Donna, and Rose, all three companions during Davy's tenure. So I think she's kind of a mix of the three of them to different degrees, which I don't have a problem with. But the fact that by the end of the episode, she's like, I don't want to do this, and you're dangerous, which very rarely do you hear a companion's tell the doctor to his or her face, you are dangerous, please get me out of here. That's new-ish. And they show that she's extremely intelligent. She doesn't put up with crap. And she's not headstrong to the degree that you see in some media these days where she's a girl boss. She does have flaws, which I like that. She's not the perfect female character, and it'll be good to see where they go. Like you said, she's already been another character in the previous series, who is, we've now found out, is her descendant, and I think she's going to be a good mix with Ncuti's version, because they'll probably be button heads the whole season in a good way. We'll see how it goes. We got 7 more episodes to see how they work together.
I mean, looking at Belinda, this feels very much like aspects of what we've seen before from Russell, but just with enough tweaks to keep it interesting. A lot of that goes to the performance as well. Because if you look at the episode, how we start, this is very much like Rose, and is very much the companion is undoubtedly the main character. Their episode. They are in terms of, you think of the plot, you can't take Belinda out. You don't have anything in this episode if you take Belinda out. Even if she's not at the center of the frame, because of her is where so much of the stuff that happens in this episode happens. We start very much like with Rose, and a little bit with Martha as well, actually. That montage of a companion's unfulfilled and unsatisfied life. It's not as if she hates her life, and I think she really likes her job, but overworks. Think of her being a nurse.
All nurses are just they go through a lot. I have nurses in my family, and they just, they do a lot. I mean, she wasn't lying when she said, well, the nurses do all the work.
Did we establish she lives in London, or did I just assume that because she was living in a HMO?
It's not actually stated. We are just meant to assume. And the point as well, I mean, very much like Jen, I have a number of nurses in my family. My mum is a nurse. My aunt is a nurse. My younger sister's mum is a nurse. My nan was a nurse. One of my sisters is a mental health nurse. We see with Belinda's job that it is very common. And it's one of these things that isn't there as part of the story, but you can just add to it if you want, is there are many, I'm sure both were, Jonathan, both, many nurses are women of colour in this country or descended from immigrants or immigrants themselves. The NHS were collapsed without the labour of migrant women. And Belinda, in some ways, is in that long tradition of women of colour who are nurses and work in healthcare. Healthcare in this country basically, in many ways, are kind of the backbone of our healthcare system. So she hates her job, but she is understandably stressed at her job. And then you look at our housing situation, but you mentioned an HMO, Jonathan, which basically means, because it's actually part of my own job, it means house of multiple occupation, which is people who slightly rapacious property developers buy houses, split those houses into individual properties and cram as many people in there as they can get.
They're basically student digs for adults.
You are right, and it actually does underline. It's a nice, I mean, we didn't say everything about this episode was subtle, but this was a nice subtle underlining of the housing crisis, which basically means you have lots of properties filled with people who are forced together because they just can't afford a home. Not because they're friends or because they want to live together, but I have no option but to live with you, and live with you. I don't really know you, I don't really like either of you. You take all my food. You don't do, your part of the house cleaning and stuff. You leave dirty dishes in the sink. If I don't live with you, then I'm going to be homeless, or I've got to go back home and live with my parents. So that's another reason why I think, Jonathan, it's a safe assumption that, yes, we are in London. It's like London or Manchester, and I won't hear many northern accents, so I feel confident saying that we are in London. Despite everything, she's not trying to run away, and she's not even trying to run to the Doctor, which is what we're used to seeing with companions. But that definitely, in terms of how she was presented early on, underscores what we're used to seeing from a companion before. That very first scene of like the young Belinda with Alan, and me and Jonathan are not best to speak about this, but it felt a little bit like baby's first boyfriend. As in, you're very young, you don't really know yourself, you're still figuring yourself out. And this guy showed interest in me, so I guess we're going out now. He's not actually very nice, but it means I'm not single. And obviously, as she gets older, that's when she should have been like, yeah, in fact, you know what? Get the fuck away from me.
I immediately thought something was off when he just like, well, are you not going to save the wrapping paper? Oh, so he's one of those. Oh, boy.
He's briefly presented as like a walking, talking red flag from the moment he appears on scene. It's kind of and everyone has regrets of like, I can't believe I went out with that person when I was like, when I was 18. What did I ever see and what was I thinking? So I'm sure lots of people who can probably watching who can relate to that. And even actually at the end, before the reveal that the AI generator is the owl generator, and Belinda agrees to marry him and says, oh, maybe I can talk to him, maybe I can convince him towards peace. And it just felt like every single woman who feels they can change a really, really useless man. And I did like, you've both mentioned that we have seen this actor before in the show recently, that there is still some mystery about Belinda, and there'll be some very, I'm sure, ridiculous speculation online over the next few weeks about what it all means. But I am glad that the Mundy Flynn thing seems to have been cleared up pretty much immediately, because that felt like the kind of, I was waiting for episode 7 or 8 to, oh, this is your descendant. Where the Doctor very quickly is like, oh, no, I've seen you before. And seems to have obviously checked that these two people are related, which just makes easy sense. We don't have to long this one out for weeks and weeks. I'm glad they got it out of the way.
Right, and to add on to her self-confidence, the fact that she immediately went, you just scanned me without my permission. What the heck? And luckily he apologizes for it immediately afterward, but I like that she pointed that out to him. She called him out on doing that, whereas a lot of past companions are like, oh, okay, you just scanned me, whatever. I guess that could be added to the fact that she's in the health profession, but I think in general it's just her smarts, and she's very guarded, which I'm fine with. And the fact that she's willing to give him some sass and some sus, which I just think that's going to be a good characterization for her going throughout the rest of the series.
Well, she doesn't want to be there. Normally, it's like, oh yeah, we can go the long way around. She's like, no, take me home now. Take me home right this minute, please. And he's like, but normally we go home to the exact same spot, but 6 8 months later in terms of what you've experienced and stuff like that. She's like, no, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I agree with everything Jen mentioned. And in addition to that, it's probably when you think of her treatment at Alan, then she would understandably be a bit more wary of guys and guys who would seem to get very over familiar, because that's something the Doctor generally does anyway. And the Doctor does kind of bounce around sometimes without just even thinking about the potential consequences of what they're doing. So the Doctor's behavior is actually like, I'm sure many of us actually didn't even think much of it until Belinda says, you just scammed me without even asking for my consent. And I'm sure particularly many more male fans were like, oh yeah, we didn't even think of that. Partly because we are so attuned and desensitized to how the Doctor acts in these situations.
Yeah, and I hope that that'll be explained a little bit better as we go along with these two. Maybe some more flashbacks of her past of why she is this way. Not just Alan, but other situations she may have experienced up to this point to make her so guarded. I think that will be good if they go that route. I hope they go that route where they explain a little bit further why she is this way. We'll have to see.
Yeah, as we've all said, that's something new, and just from the brief look online I've seen, I think a lot of people have really liked that and found it really not just refreshing, but they are excited. Not the right word, but they are really intrigued by that, because that is something a bit new. I mean, I've got more to say on that, but if we just move on to Jen, just any additional observations of anything we might have missed?
The biggest thing that we caught, Mrs. Flood's back.
Living next door again.
Now, there's a lot of speculation of who Mrs. Flood actually is. I won't go into that because that's a whole episode in itself. But it was cool to see her come back for the little time on screen that we saw her. So that kind of tied this into previous episodes where she was in it. I like the little scrubby bot. Polish, polish, polish. He was adorable. I want one. Manny. Oh. I had to pause that picture of him holding up the seal. Oh. And I only know that actor from the Vampire Academy TV show that they did. He's also been on a couple of British soap operas. But I was like, he's nice.
Just to piggyback your point on that there definitely was quite a lot of approval I was seeing online for him, for his appearance. I will say as well, the actor whose name I believe is Max Parker, he's not in it much, he doesn't have much to do, but I think with a little he did do, he left an impact, he kind of left a mark. And you know how in Doctor Who in particular, when actors will become famous, and then you look at their CV, their IMDb page, you're like, they were in Doctor Who 4 years ago, and you're like, you don't remember them being in an episode, and you look back and you're like, oh yeah, they were in it for 2 minutes. The Andrew Garfield effect. And that actor, I just would not rule out in 3 or 4 years' time him being famous, and maybe on both sides of the pond. I think he's got some good presence about him.
That is the most British entrance into TV. His first recurring role was in Casualty, followed by Emmerdale.
He's following a well-worn path.
Yep.
Yeah, he's done a lot of smaller parts in it. Yeah, he was in a soap opera over there and so forth. And the first thing I ever saw him in, besides this, was Vampire Academy. I was like, I recognize him from some, because I heard his voice. For me, it was the voice. It wasn't the look. It was the voice. And I immediately went, "Who is that?" Oh, yeah, he was in that show. Okay, got it. Yeah, they specifically made sure everyone knew how built he is. I'm not complaining. I know he's gay in real life, but I'm not complaining. In general, I like Belinda, and I would like to see where her dynamic and how she, specifically her and the Doctor, and the fact that they'll probably be button heads the entire series. They did good casting with Verada. I think she's going to be a good addition. I feel that the episode was a little short as far as explaining, again, Sasha 55, we're like, oh, she's dead. Okay. Moving on. I mean, it's okay. Some things felt a little rushed. Now, I noticed without commercials, the episode was only 45 minutes long. So that was probably a factor. They had to squeeze a little bit to put in advertisements. But I think it could have done better to be a full hour without advertisements. And I think that extra 15 minutes would have done a lot to explain a few things. As you said, it felt kind of rushed, and I think they should have put in a little more to explain certain aspects of characters like Sasha, so we kind of have a better indication of who she is, why she's important to the Doctor, but she just kind of there and then she wasn't.
So I do totally agree about that length, but I suspect that's actually a BBC issue, not a Disney issue. Obviously, Disney doesn't have schedules in that way, where BBC still have a schedule of you have this time slot. I'm trying to remember what was on. I don't, Jonathan, you remember what was on either side of it? Like, yes, I think Gladiator's final was.
Gladiators, obviously.
Yeah, Gladiator's final was on. Talking about like reboots of things that have somehow become popular again. Like, I think every writer of every show always wants more time for whatever they're writing. I feel confident that it's the BBC that said you've got 45 minutes, and then that's just handed over to Disney, and Disney's like, all right, that's the episode final, and that goes off on the Disney Plus. That goes where Russell, I'm sure, would have liked more, and yeah, that might have helped the episode a little bit.
I have just looked it up just out of curiosity. Gladiators was on first, then Doctor Who, then followed by The Weakest Link and Pointless Celebrities.
Yeah, so to us, we were like give Doctor Who more time, but obviously the BBC schedulers. The show has always been at the mercy of the BBC schedulers, and like the time slot, I think will be broadly the same, but it won't be exactly the same. So I know it might be next week's. There is an episode that's going to be at 7:15, where this week's was 10 to 7. So it'll be in that evening time, but it probably won't be the same time every week. And partly probably because of episode length as well, because like Disney aren't like, you can give us a 2-hour episode, it's fine, but Disney obviously have less issues with things being 42 minutes, 47 minutes, 56 minutes. Like that's not going to bother them that much. Where the BBC, they'll be more stringent. So that is why I suspect the episode was the length it was. Jonathan, any other observations that we've missed?
Well, just one. The cat getting absolutely murked was great.
The cat is irrelevant. No, the cat is relevant. No, the cat is irrelevant. You don't even get to see it. The cat itself is just, you suddenly see the bones. You didn't even get to see what breed of cat it was. It was just gone.
That's great.
I don't know if Russell has any pets, so I'm assuming he's not a cat person. That was brutal. That was brutal the way they dealt with that cat. In terms of some stuff we haven't mentioned yet, like, this is a minor nitpick. We've nitpicked on some, so this is a minor nitpick. But, like, the diploma that Belinda gets at the start, why would you keep it? It doesn't feel like the kind of thing you want to keep hold of.
That's a good point, now that you know how that relationship ended.
I mean, even at the start, I was like, well, that's probably not... Like, I hope you're not staying with that person. So, yeah, I'm sure you'd have got rid of that. Especially when you moved house. That's the kind of thing that, when you're moving house and you're like, I don't even know I had all this shit. I don't even need it. Get rid of it. Like that. I understand you need it for the plot. I understand why she kept it.
Well, not only did she keep it, she kept it on her wall above her bed.
Like, if the robots had turned up and gone, by the way, we found this in a box in your attic, and she'd gone, oh. But yeah, actually, now that I think about that, that makes no sense.
That's a minor nitpick. It's like, I get why you do it, and I'm not really sure what the alternative is. I don't want to be a dickhead about this, but it was just like, yeah, I'm not sure she would, if we were being realistic about this, I'm not sure she would have, she'd have kept that. This is the kind of thing that maybe we had more of if we had a longer episode, but Alan's discussing patriarchal behavior, like we showed it damaging him when he was fused with the AI generator, about he was actually suffering in his own pain as well. Not enough to stop, but it was just an underlying thing of this kind of behavior actually does damage the perpetrators as much as the people they victimize. We haven't spoke about Ncuti much. I know it's particularly towards the end. I think and this is normal, the Doctor in the second series, the actor, I think it becomes more at home, more comfortable with how they're going to portray this character. I think it's intentional, and it's not a criticism, by the way, but he's become a bit more flamboyant at times in his line readings and how he's playing the character. He does a Yas Queen at one point. He does a ridiculous high kick. Like, he must do some actually outrageous, like, yoga and Pilates. When he says to Belinda, let's go, and he kind of hustles her along, again, in a very animated, flamboyant way. This is not, again, I have no problem with this, but it is more like, okay, he's feeling more at ease with how he wants to play this character.
Well, I think he's channeling his character from Sex Education, too, because that character's also very flamboyant. So he may be kind of doing a little more of that character and this character, I think. I think that's just Ncuti in general. And I like the fact that his new outfit, at least at the beginning of the episode, he's wearing a skirt. I was like, yes, that's actually really cute.
Oh, no, I totally agree. I mean, I imagine he would insist on calling it a kilt, being a Scot. But yeah, no, I totally agree that the sex education thing, I think that is kind of leans more into him. And I imagine it'll be written for this series, the character will be written a bit more that way to give Ncuti more of those moments, because that is a thing, I think, all right to say, that when you have an idea of your actor, you do write more to their strengths. And if that's something Ncuti's good at, and he feels comfortable doing, you give him more opportunities to do that. So I definitely think that's something we should expect to see more of the next few weeks. And also, I'm thinking of the Doctor's behavior in those moments is before, obviously, the showdown in the TARDIS, the Doctor's like, okay, there's my new companion. I found the next one. And the Doctor's obviously going on from not losing Ruby, she's not dead. We'll see her again in a few weeks. But Ruby leaving the TARDIS, the interaction of a year he had with Anita in the hotel, and doesn't have a new companion. We know the Doctor needs to be traveling with someone. And I think the Doctor is just very excitable about finding a new companion, which is underscored more with Sasha's death. That partly doesn't excuse the behaviour, but explains some of his behaviour of just got a bit carried away because, like, oh, great, I found someone else to go travelling with. And of course I want to go travelling with me because who doesn't? And then, as we see in the episode, this person's like, yeah, I don't know if you're all that, which I imagine will be part of the arc between those two. And one thing I liked, it was kind of just a low-key thing, but when Sasha is killed and we see the Doctor upset, and then he very quickly not snaps out of it, but changes his emotional modulation at the moment. It's like, right, okay, on to the next thing, which does feel no more Doctor-like, but also if the Doctor has gone through the therapy of all the previous trauma, healed himself, that doesn't mean you ain't experienced new trauma. And that might be a new traumatic thing for this Doctor to go through, and is why he moves on so, on the face of it, so quickly, even though he may still be carrying a lot of grief with him. In this episode, the Doctor's kind of embedded with a rebel force, and that feels a little. We know units coming back. That's very much like the Doctor. Part of the reason why the Doctor could launch a rebellion within maybe 6 months is because, like, well, I've done this with unit. That my third incarnation, that was just me the whole time. And so there's just a bit of Doctor can lean on past experiences with what he did with the rebels.
I forgot to mention, he says timey-wimey, which I actually chuckled at. And the fact that Belinda also says it, I was like, okay, there we go. We got some callback.
Yeah, I know a lot of people online actually enjoyed that, particularly Belinda's dismissive response. Another, I think, relatively subtle socio-political commentary from Russell, the Queen is a ceremonial role with no power. I can't imagine what he's referring to there. Yeah. One thing I really actually did like on the technical side is kind of the sound editing, where it really slows down as they go through the time fracture. And then the moment when the two scrolls touch, and the moment when Sasha's killed, and then they deliberately slow the screen down. And the actual sound in those moments I thought were really effective. Like, I didn't like what happened up to the moment the scrolls touch, but in that actual scene, I understand, again, I'm not familiar, but I understand there's a lot of a psychedelic vibe, which apparently fits into the third Doctor quite a bit, which I think is probably the Doctor that Ncuti's closest to. But those actual technical stuff, and particularly the sound, the use of sound in those scenes, I thought was very, very good.
Yeah, and the actual aesthetic of the planet itself was very 1950s, early 60s niche as far as the design of all the ships and everything. It was very old 50s-ish kitsch looking, which I think was intentional, especially considering where they're going next week. I thought that was pretty cool. And actually,
I mean, you mentioned the 1950s thing, Jenny. It actually was deliberate. Have you? Because I don't know if you noticed. The Doctor Who Unleashed, the behind-the-scenes show. Russell's mentioned on Doctor Who Unleashed. I understand, obviously, me and Jonathan won't know, but I understand, they put that at least on Disney Plus. So people outside the UK got nothing apart from what was on YouTube in terms of all the really good behind-the-scenes stuff we got last year. But Doctor Who Unleashed, I understand, is on Disney Plus now. So, yeah, you can watch it. And Russell speaks about the robots specifically. I think he started with the robots. He wanted to give it a 1950s vibe. And then from there, they were like, okay, so the planet should have that same visual look to it. So the whole 1950s thing that you mentioned, Jenny, that was actually very deliberate. Yeah, I thought mostly pretty well done. And the only other final thing is just the AI generator, the AL generator, in the early stage of talking, it felt very, very similar to the Cybermen. Its plans, its reason for plans. It just felt, I've heard all this kind of shit before.
I was thinking Star Trek. I am Nomad. That's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of obvious similarities between a lot of these shows, but yeah, maybe it means nothing. But it's like, are we going to is the Cybermen, they're going to be the big villain later on at some point? But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, Jonathan, if we just move on to you kind of already mentioned who it is, but your MVP for the episode.
Is it Vada? Is that how you pronounce?
No, it's actually pronounced Vada. So yeah, you don't really pronounce the second A.
Varda Setu.
Yeah, pretty much like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's her entire episode, isn't it? We've already said everything about it, so yeah, I'm going to stick with her.
Okay, Jenny, you're MVP of this episode?
It's her, for sure. I mean, like you said, it's about her. It centers around her, and the actress is spectacular. So yeah, she's my MVP as well.
Full House for me. I mean, I think you both summed up quite well that in a way it has to be her. And if it wasn't her, something would have gone wrong with this episode because it's her episode. You don't have an episode without her. Russell has consciously, and I think wisely, this is the right thing to do because we are now familiar with this Doctor. We are not familiar with this new companion at all. So you do have to kind of put her at the frame and not just put her at the frame in terms of the introductory montage and everything, but the plot center around her. So she's always significant, even when she's not on screen. In every scene, she's significant. She's like the person acting on the scene. I don't mean acting as in performing. I mean like how a character is used is the thing that's pushing the narrative all the time. So then you need the actor to perform up to the level that the narrative demands. And yeah, Vajrasetu, I think, definitely did that. I mean, that last scene, I think, is a scene where I think a lot of, because curiously enough, the general, from the critics who got advanced viewings of this, the general consensus was this episode wasn't actually well reviewed, but a lot of people said Vajrasetu was very good. And I feel that maybe them, and I definitely think a lot of people online that I saw, it was that last scene in the TARDIS. And a lot of people like, oh, okay, yeah, I like this. This is good. She's good. I am on board with her. I think that last scene in particular is where a lot of people have really now intrigued and have taken to Belinda. And obviously, it's the actor that's got to do all the heavy lifting then. And Vajrasetu did it. It almost felt like a wider commentary on how the Doctor is used to treating their companions over the past 62 years. And for that then to really work, you do need the companion in the moment of, is that what you said to Sasha? That scene, if the actor doesn't get it right, the scene doesn't work as well. So that was good. The whole thing about she doesn't seem like a character that's going to go along to get along. Jen, you'll speak for yourself here, but I would imagine many women could relate to that. Of like not just being like, okay, yeah, fine. She's like, no, wait, stop. I'm not doing this. Or why are we doing this?
Yeah, well, also in general, a lot of the earlier Davies companions immediately had a crush on the Doctor for reasons. They stopped that with Donna, obviously. But Donna and him were just mates. But for a lot of the earlier, younger companions, they obviously had a crush on him or were secretly in love with him or not so secretly in love with him. I mean, even Clara, to a smaller degree, had a thing for Matt Smith's Doctor. It's nice that we finally have a companion that A, doesn't have a crush on him or is immediately attracted to him. A companion that basically stands up for herself and basically is like, I don't want to be here. Take me home now. No questions. No. And she just keeps going, nope. Take me back. She's not like, oh, an adventure. Let's go. It's not exactly like that, but you get the idea. She's not a pushover.
The mention of Donna does feel very, very relevant here because you feel very much like Donna. Belinda has a very low tolerance for bullshit and may end up, and we will see, but may end up on a journey of her own growth into herself and self-actualization traveling with the Doctor. That's generally what the companion does with the Doctor. They, in some ways, become the best version of themselves. And like we've seen with Belinda's life, that a very good person, but for some reasons beyond her control, hasn't always maybe been able to fully live the life that she wants. And the whole, like you said, mentioned about Jen, about there's no, oh, let's go on an adventure. Like she literally says, I am not one of your adventures. So I do think there's generally a lot of positivity around this character and a lot of eagerness to see where this episode goes next, which is why I like this episode. I think the first episode should never be the best. And if this is going to be the best we get this series, then we got a problem. But it should just kind of almost make you glad the show's back and set you up, set a tone and set you up for like next week. And it's like, I am looking forward to what we get next week. So if you have any thoughts on what we've just said, you can email us at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com. And we can also be reached across social media at analysingdw. So Jonathan, Jen, thank you for both being here.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week to analyse Lux. Until next time.
Our logo is courtesy of Scott Mattison. His work can be found at planetrisecreative.com and on Twitter at planetrise. Our theme tune is by Mike Mould. We can be reached at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com and on Twitter at analysingdw.